You're listening to the Wildfiles. Let's get into something that quietly costs MSPs more than they realise. People don't usually leave because of one dramatic moment. They leave because of a small series of avoidable ones. And most of them happen before, well, you even notice. This month we're going to dig into retention properly. Not perks, not reactive counter-offers, not scrabbling when someone hands in their notice. We're talking about the architecture of it. What you signal during hiring, what happens in that fragile space between yes and day one, what you reinforce or neglect in those first 90 days, and the early behavioural clues that tell you whether someone is settling in or quietly stepping out. If you're scaling, if you're planning hires for the next quarter, or if you're done with déjà vu recruitment, this series is going to sharpen how you think about keeping great people. Let's get into it. Let me ask you something. If one of your new starters resigned at month 4, would you be shocked? Or would a small part of you think, yeah, I can see why? That small voice matters because today we're talking about the first 90 days. And I'm going to say something that might surprise you. Most MSPs don't have bad onboarding. They have passive onboarding. And passive onboarding quietly leaks good people. But here's the twist. The leak doesn't actually start on day one. It often starts before they even walk through the door. See, this is the part of hiring that most MSPs completely underestimate. It's not the interview. It's not onboarding. It's the gap. The space between I accept and day one. I call it the danger zone because this is where good hires quietly disappear. Let's be honest, most strong MSP technicians are not unemployed, should I say, when you hire them. They are still in a role. They are still visible. They are still being approached. Even after accepting your offer, they are still getting LinkedIn messages, still being contacted by recruiters, still being valued by their current employer. And here's what makes this delicate. They've emotionally left one place, but they haven't physically arrived at another. That gap is psychologically vulnerable, and vulnerability invites doubt. Now, counter-offers are not just about money. They're about validation. Suddenly, their current employer says, "We didn't realise how valuable you were. What can we do to keep you? We'll fix what's been frustrating you." And if you've gone quiet since they accepted, well, that counteroffer feels louder because silence creates space, and space invites hesitation. Let's be realistic. Good technicians often have more than one option. If another MSP drags their feet, but then swoops in with slightly more money or a better hybrid flexibility, that second offer can feel tempting, especially if they haven't heard from you in 2 weeks. Silence does not feel neutral. It feels like distance. Here's what most MSPs do wrong. Offer accepted, paperwork sent, start date agreed, tick. Then everyone gets busy. Delivery pressure, client issues, internal meetings. And the new starter hears very little. Maybe a short email. Maybe nothing for 2 or 4 weeks. That silence sends a message. You're not urgent or important anymore. And that's not what you mean, but that's how it feels. The danger zone is not something to survive. It's something to design. This is where you reinforce alignment. This is where you build belonging before day one. Simple things matter. A call a week after acceptance. A message from their future manager. An outline of their first week. A short coffee before they start. A Slack intro ahead of time. Not corporate, not heavy, just human. Because the more connected they feel before day one, the less attractive a counteroffer becomes. Retention starts here, not on day one. If they make it through the danger zone and arrive motivated, you've protected the first leak. Now, onboarding begins. This is where most MSPs unintentionally create the second leak. When I ask MSP leaders, who owns onboarding? The answer is often, well, everyone really, which actually means no one. If ownership is unclear, experience becomes, well, inconsistent. And if experience becomes inconsistent, new starters, they self-protect. They stop asking questions. They try to prove themselves quickly and they avoid appearing incompetent. And their leak begins again. Week 1 is adrenaline. Week 2 is learning. Week 3 is where reality sets in. This is when the internal questions appear. You know, the ones, who actually owns this? Is escalation clear here? Is it safe to push back? Why did that decision change? If clarity is missed, anxiety raises. Anxiety without structure, well, that creates doubt. And doubt, that creates withdrawal. So you can hand someone every login in the business and still leave them isolated. Access is technical. Integration is emotional and operational. Integration means knowing who you can safely escalate to, understanding the unwritten team norms, feeling confident about your authority, and knowing what good looks like. Integration Integration requires intention. It requires someone owning it. Now, there's a huge difference between they pass probation and they feel settled. Survival is compliance. Settlement is belonging. And retention lives in belonging. And belonging does not happen accidentally, in fast-moving MSPs. It has to be designed. Here's what makes this serious. If the danger zone was passive and onboarding is passive, the compounding effect is powerful. They feel slightly uncertain before starting. Now they feel slightly unsupported after starting. Nothing dramatic. Just a steady drip of doubt. And that drip becomes churn. This is not about building a corporate HR machine. It's about ownership. Own the gap. Own the first 30 days. Own the escalation clarity. Own the check-ins. Ask your last 3 hires. What surprised you between accepting and starting? What surprised you in your first month? You will find the leaks. And once you see them, well, you can seal them. Your 90 days are not neutral. They either stabilise talent or they leak it. And the leak often starts before day one. Look after them after they say yes. Look after them when they arrive. Design both intentionally, because good people do not suddenly leave, they drift. And that drift is preventable. If there's one thing I want you to take away from today's episode, it's this. The first 90 days are not an onboarding phase. They are a stability strategy. Retention is not something you deal with when resignation lands in your inbox. By then, the drift has already happened. It's built far earlier than that. It's built in how you hire, in how you clearly set your expectations, in how often you communicate between offer and day one, in who owns the relationship once they walk through the door, in the rhythm you create in those first 3 months. The MSPs that feel steady are not just fortunate, they're deliberate. They do not leave the gap unguarded. They do not treat onboarding as admin. They do not ignore early behavioural signs. They design the experience properly, because strong people, well, they rarely leave overnight. They disengage quietly. They question privately. And they drift gradually. And drift is preventable when you build the first 90 days with intent. That's the difference. And that is what stable MSPs understand. If you're looking at Q2 and thinking, we need to grow, but we need to grow without chaos, then start here. Start with your structure. Start with clarity. And start before urgency forces your hand. As always, if this has sparked something for you, share it with another MSP leader who's building properly. Until next time, protect the transition, design the integration, and as always, stay wild.